Today we're going to be doing a little series on nephron physiology and exactly what it is, how it works. I know it can be a little bit daunting when you first look at it. It was for me, but hopefully as in this series I can help you to really compartmentalize all of this information and commit it to memory. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. First of all, for those of you who don't know, the nephron is a functional part of the kidney. It's what's going to filter your blood and create urine. Okay, and the different parts of the nephron are the glomerulus, the proximal convoluted tubule, the proximal straight tubule, the loop of Henle, which includes its thin descending, thin ascending, and thick ascending parts, early distal convoluted tubule, late distal convoluted tubule, and our collecting duct. In order to best understand the function of each of these sections, I think it's best to divide them into three parts. The first part that I'd like to talk about are the parts of the nephron that are responsible for secretion and for reabsorption of solutes. Secretion is moving solutes from the blood to the urine, so you're getting rid of it extra, even more than what you filtered out. And reabsorption is moving solutes from the nephron back out to the blood, which means we're recovering it for the body. Okay. So let's go ahead and start with the proximal convoluted tubule. That is one of the sections of the nephron that's an important player in the reabsorption and secretion of substances. The proximal convoluted tubule is especially important because it's going to reabsorb glucose and amino acids. In fact, it's going to reabsorb almost all of the glucose and amino acids that are filtered into the nephron at all. The proximal straight tubule will actually catch the rest of the glucose and other things right there. So you will not get any secretion of glucose or amino acids in your urine in a healthy patient. Then the proximal convoluted tubule is also responsible for sodium bicarbonate reabsorption. And we'll talk more about the mechanism for that in a different video. The proximal straight tubule, as you may have guessed, is another one that's important in secretion and reabsorption. It's going to be primarily responsible for sodium chloride reabsorption. The distal convoluted tubule, the early section, is also a major player in this reabsorption and secretion, and it's going to also reabsorb sodium chloride. Also, the thick loop of Henle, I wouldn't put it in this group, but it is important to note that the thin loop of Henle is going, or the thick loop of Henle is going to reabsorb cations, magnesium, calcium, sodium chloride, or sodium, potassium in large amounts. It will also reabsorb chloride. Okay, let's go ahead and jump into our next group of sections, and that's going to be the part that is responsible for establishing a concentration gradient in our medulla, and that's the loop of Henle. Okay, so on this side of the loop of Henle, it's highly permeable to water. On this side, it's actually only permeable to solutes and not to water. It's permeable to urea in both sections there. What ends up happening? Okay, so the distal or the thick ascending loop of Henle works to pump solutes out. Okay, so it's going to pump solutes out into the interstitial space here, and the water is going to kind of follow from our thin descending loop of Henle. But what ends up happening is, as the water is able to be pumped out, we get really highly concentrated filtrate down here and lesser concentrated filtrate up here. And that is maintained actually by the fact that the ascending loop of Henle is not permeable to water. Okay, since it's not permeable to water, it's only permeable to solutes. What ends up happening is the solutes are going to move from this highly concentrated area down here back into the interstitial space, right, to try and maintain that osmolality, and we end up with a gradient from 280 milliosmoles all the way down to 1,200 milliosmoles down in this section, okay? And that's actually not terribly significant here, but it becomes really significant for the collecting duct, which kind of aligns with that spatially, okay? And our last section that we talked about were the late distal convoluted tubule and our collecting duct. They have three types of cells. They have principal cells, alpha intercalated cells, and beta intercalated cells. The principal cells are going to be responsible for reabsorbing sodium chloride and secreting potassium when aldosterone is active, okay? Also, only in the collecting duct, principal cells will be responsible for movement of water. That helps to concentrate the urine. The alpha intercalated cells are going to move bicarbonate into the blood, okay? So bases back into the blood and acids into the urine. And beta intercalated cells are going to move exactly the opposite. They're going to move acids into the blood and bicarbonate into the urine. That's a brief rundown of all of the parts. I'm going to go into more detail in subsequent videos about each section.